Well, hello. I'm CJ Ferry.
And I'm Chip Camara. How are you today?
And this is Spindle City Straight Talk. We're coming to you again in your homes, and we thank you for welcoming us in. We're bringing you the news that nobody else wants to bring you. And it's the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. And we're going to start off right away with some stories we've been following here in Fall River. And some people want to hear about it, some people don't. The first thing we want to bring up is the Mr. Ruggerio incident. It's been in the news. We've talked about it a little bit here on the show. And as my patriot here, Chip Camara, knows, we've been talking with Ford Motor and Hyundai Motor America in regards to Mr. Ruggerio and Mayor Flanagan and Mayor Flanagan's recent comments in the paper. I've spoken with Ms. Weingard, who is Ford Motor's press vice president, and she put me in conference with their legal department and their president of the board, and I was on the phone with them for some time on Columbus Day. After our phone meeting, they said they would call me back within an hour and they would email me a statement. Their statement was as follows. Ford Motor Company does not in any way endorse any political candidate for office, nor do they endorse any city or town in their actions with the Ford Motor Company or any of its franchisees. As for Mr. Ruggerio, Ford Motor Company at this point in time makes no comments in regards to Mr. Ruggerio's actions. They will leave those comments to be made by their legal department after Mr. Ruggerio and their legal department has a comment in regards to his franchise and according to the contract that Mr. Ruggerio and Ford Motor Company has entered into. So basically, you can interpret that in any way you see fit, but we have met, over the phone with Ford and with Hyundai, and that is their position, that they're not endorsing our mayor and they're not endorsing Fall River. But I think what has happened here and what you need to look at is the fact that Fall River is now on the map with Ford, and I don't think it's in a good way. I mean, what do you think about that, Chip?
Well, I think there's even more to this than the fact that we're not really looked upon in a favorable light by the Ford Motor Company for this entire issue, but it's more an issue of credibility. The last program we read some direct quotes from the Herald News, which spoke to the mayor, stating that he had heard from reliable sources, and now we've got an audio tape of the mayor saying he was told by Mr. Ruggerio that he put a bid in for the Herald News. We know that isn't factual now. So now we have an issue of credibility here. The fact is Mr. Ruggerio, did Mr. Ruggerio lie to the mayor, or did the mayor lie to the public? Because either way, someone was lying, because the mayor contended that he was told that there was a bid made on the Herald News, and there was no bid, and we read that from the Herald News. So again, we get issues of credibility that go right back to the top, and the mayor seems to make quite a few statements that are inaccurate and unreliable.
And I believe you and I had a conversation earlier today in regards to further statements that may have been made regarding the purchase and sale of the Herald News. And I know I called Lisa Stratton's office today, and they had Lynn Sullivan call me, and I asked about those further statements, and they were shocked. They're like, when will this stop? And I said, well, it seems like you're worth a lot more money than you thought. Maybe it's time you ask for a raise.
Well, the reality is I think the mayor's attempting to, basically try to justify his statements by creating even more of a misconception on the part of the public. The fact is he's saying now that the offer, in fact, wasn't given to the Herald News. It was given to a parent company. And as far as I'm concerned, and that's why we call this show Straight Talk, if I had positive proof that one of my statements was correct, I would just produce the proof. We hear a lot of talk, but we don't see any corroborative evidence from the mayor on many things that he says. And in this particular issue, I think he got caught with his, with his hand in the cookie jar, and now he's looking to kind of hide it with some smoke and mirrors.
Yes, and it's funny because this is our 5th episode of the show, and you, the audience, are already providing us with a vast resource of information for us to investigate. So you're keeping us working, and we appreciate it. And one of the next pieces of things that came up to us, which I was very surprised at, and when I brought it to Chipper, he was stunned as well. And you can speak on this, I'm sure, as well, Chipper. But a gentleman by the name of Ray Gamache got a hold of me, and his son served 3 terms, 3 tours of duty in Iraq, and he was killed. And he's been trying to get a small plaque or a monument put up to remember his son here in Fall River, because he was a Fall River resident. And he went to the mayor, and he's been trying for over almost a year now. And the mayor said, I don't handle that. He says, you need to go speak to Ray Haig. That's the first thing that bothered me, was the mayor turned around and said, I don't handle that. Isn't this the man who says in all his advertising and everywhere that he's here for the elderly and veteran services? Isn't this the man that says he's going to serve, the elderly and veterans?
Yeah, I believe that's in one of his campaign ads, but I think it's more rhetoric because actions speak much louder than words. And let me explain this a little further. This young man was killed in an automobile accident, to what I've been told, on his way back to the base.
Yep.
After he served 3 tours in Iraq. So he wasn't killed in action, but he was killed on his way back to the military base, and he is a Fall River resident, and I think it's kind of a unique circumstance here. The man did serve his country, and basically in 3 wars, because 3 tours basically amount to 3 wars.
Yeah.
He went to Iraq 3 times for his country, and it really upsets me when the mayor doesn't say that. As far as I'm concerned, the mayor should have looked at Mr. Gamache and said, I will handle this. He is what Fall River should be proudest of. A young man who went to serve his country and his nation, and not once, but 3 different times. And we will make sure that something is done to remember your son. Not send him to the Veterans Office where they asked him for money. And that's what really bothers me. And it bothers to the extent where CJ and I were going to run a fundraiser, but we spoke to some people, and obviously one of the VFWs now is going to run a fundraiser, and I will mention this at the city council meeting tonight, and I am going to invite every city councilor to that fundraiser, because I think it's outrageous that this mayor didn't show up for a dedication of an auditorium in the memory of someone who died in combat, who was from this city, and now we have this. And that he's a friend of the veterans. It kind of doesn't ring true, just as the senior citizens. A while back, we saw him make the city employees, the elderly city employees, pay more for their health care than any other segment of the population. So, this is outrageous. If one segment of our population should be treated with nothing but dignity and honor, it's our veterans.
And as I was saying, and as you have said, the mayor sent him to Ray Haig, who's the veteran agent here in Fall River. And Ray Haig said, well, we can do something for you. We can give you a bench down at the Iwo Jima Memorial with your son's name on it. Just give me $800. I mean, to me, that's a slap in the face. To ask for $800. And I'm not saying Ray Haig was asking for $800 for himself. That $800 probably paid for the bench and the plaque and the installation and all of that. But to actually ask for the family of a veteran who died for $800 to put up a memorial for the city to remember that veteran who passed away, to me is an insult. It's an insult to every veteran. It's an insult to the memory of this particular veteran. And I think that, every citizen watching this show should call the Veterans Office and tell Ray Haig he should be ashamed of himself for asking for that money, and make it perfectly clear that, his job is to service the veterans of this community and to be sure that they are remembered and treated with the greatest amount of dignity. It's very important, and you should call every city councilor too and let them know that, because this type of disrespect is unacceptable in any way, shape, or form, and I personally won't accept it.
Well, neither will I. We will ensure that that money is raised, but we get back to, it all starts at the top. Like Harry Truman said, the buck stops here. The mayor should have taken the bull by the horns and dealt with this issue. And I understand that, money is tight in Fall River, they keep telling us, and the cost of living goes up, but the taxes go up, fees go up, and what do we get for it? We can build swing sets, we can have a fountain built, we can find money for things that will garner votes, and anything that will have a political effect to get votes. But when it comes to doing something to honor one of the best things that represents Fall River, that our people actually defend our nation, and some of them make the supreme sacrifice, and we have to do this in order to remember them, it doesn't speak well of this administration, and it doesn't cast a very good light on the city.
No, and my heart goes out to Mr. Gamache and his family, because obviously, this wasn't an easy thing for them. Because not only did they lose their son, they lost their daughter-in-law, because she was also in the military, and she was killed in this car accident. And they were actually both going to deploy again. They were going for their next deployment. So, here was a young man who was dedicated to his service to his country, and he was going to deploy for yet another deployment. So, this is a man who kept putting himself last. He kept putting his country first, and that's a great thing.
Yeah, and I think that obviously this is every issue should be looked at separately, and I think this is a unique situation. We have someone who had 3 tours and was going for a 4th tour. I also have a personal friend of mine who lost a son in Afghanistan. He wasn't killed in action. He was killed by a insect bite, and he went into anaphylactic shock and died. But okay, we can say that wasn't militarily related. However, he was in Afghanistan and he did serve his country. And those people should be honored, because he was wearing the uniform of the United States and he did it voluntarily. And everybody from Fall River who puts that uniform on should be given the respect that they're due.
I agree. Totally. We're going to be looking at a couple of issues coming up. I know that the City Council is going to be looking at a few things. I know that we've looked at a few things recently with the Retirement Board. We've looked at a couple of issues that keep bouncing back up. Why do these things keep bouncing back up with the city? Now all of a sudden we want to open up you got one school committee member who wants to open up the Henry Lord as the Henry Lord Middle School again. Didn't we just close it? And we have another school committee member who wants to open it up with the 5th grade put in, while the original one who wants to open it up as the middle school wants to put the 5th grade in there as well. Does the right know what the left's doing? What's happening here? Nobody seems to know what's going on. And the leader of the group, the mayor, doesn't seem to have any comments at this point.
Well, I think again we see a lot of action and a lot of resolutions that they feel are resolutions to our problems, but we don't get down to the bottom line, which is educating our children. Let's give them some straight talk again. The fact is that we just had 2 level 4 schools that were no longer classified as level 4 schools, yet we have another level 4 school now, the Watson, and we have the Morton Middle School that the superintendent has already said would ultimately become a level 4 school. So are we really moving these schools from level 4 up? Are we moving the students around in order to get more money. And as we said in one of our other programs, it baffles me, and I am not a professional educator, but it seems to me if we could figure out a blueprint to have one school at a level 1, we could use the same blueprint at the other schools. So, there seems to be, as Shakespeare once said, much to do about nothing.
Well, it's interesting because last night I was at a fundraiser for a city councilor, and of course, as you know, when these fundraisers happen, every other candidate comes out of the woodwork, and everyone's there to make an impression on the voters. And there were a couple of school committee candidates there, a few incumbents, and I had a conversation with them about these level 4 schools. And the one consistent statement from them was this: it's all about money. It's all about money. And I think we've said this on this show a couple of times already. It's all about money. When a school is level 4, they get more money. This is the only time I know of that you get paid more, you get given more, you get rewarded to fail. And we make more money in this city on failing than we do on succeeding. And that's how they make things happen. And it was also very interesting because while we were talking about getting more money into the school system so they can make the budget work, there were a couple of vendors for the school system there that are still, and they were arguing with people that were there, with city councilors and with school committee people, about the fact that their bills from the last fiscal year have yet to be paid. They're still waiting to be paid. And of course, I made the comment, because of, you know me, I've got to stir it up. I turned around and I said to the city council president, I said, oh, it looks like you didn't have enough time to move the money out of the health fund account. And she just laughed about it. But, you know, I'm not speaking erroneously. You know, I'm speaking very honestly that the way the school budget works, and please correct me if I'm wrong, and, you know, the way the city budget works is they move money around. You know, we'll take it from here and put it here and take it from here and put it here. Oh, wait, now we need it back over here, so we've got to take it from here to put it back here. Am I wrong? I mean, do we play, you know, find the money? I mean, is that how it's done?
Well, unfortunately, you're right, CJ. And I can testify to that fact because I did an audit of at least the healthcare way back a long time ago, and we hired Ernst & Young, one of the top accounting firms, and we proved that they move money around routinely, and they also don't pay their bills in a timely fashion. As a matter of fact, I have a bill for my wrist, which I injured in the line of duty, and they're fully aware of it, that is almost 3 years old and they still haven't paid it. And I've called the law department and I've called the fire department, and they said it's authorized to be paid. And the last I got 2 months ago was, oh, it's authorized, we're going to pay it, but the billing company sometimes doesn't pay them very quickly. Well, 3 years is a little long for a bill, and ironically enough, it's an extremely small bill, and so this is a routine thing that we have in the city. They don't have the money sometime, and sometimes they actually don't pay bills. We had an instance at one time that when I was still on the job, that we had a fire truck with a flat tire, and no vendor in Fall River would sell us a tire because we owed them all too much money, and we hadn't paid their bills. So we had to get a vendor from outside the community to get a tire for a fire truck. So that says something about the way we do business, and there seems to be no accountability.
Again, you know, and that's our credit rating, you know, down the toilet. But remember, our credit rating's stabilizing. And one of the last things I think is a follow-up on last week's show, which was the Matuk incident, or demonstration, or whatever you want to call it. And I believe you're going to be speaking in front of the city council about that again, and you're going to be giving kudos to City Councilor Rigo.
Yes, that's right, because there were, unfortunately, actually threats made to councilors, and that they were going to be cited for trespassing, and they were going to get ethics violations filed against them. If they had the audacity to fight for Fall River jobs. And I think that Councilor Rego, for standing up and actually bringing this to light, is needs to, we should give credit where credit is due. He was the man who exposed the fact that we had a Rhode Island contractor pouring concrete. And last week we said there were Fall River contracts given out, but now we have another issue that has surfaced. Here at Straight Talk, we dig a little bit, and it appears as though the Fall River contractors are all people who have contributed to the mayor, and some of whom have city jobs in addition to being outside contractors. So now we have another issue that we have to deal with, and that is, are all Fall River vendors having an equal opportunity at getting work in Fall River, or do you have to buy your way in?
Yes, I received a phone call over the weekend from a city vendor who wanted to make it very clear that he had no knowledge that Matuk was looking for a company in plumbing or fire suppression, electrical, or any of the contractors that they said in the paper they were looking for. And had he known about that, he would have been more than happy to get a hold of Matuk and would have bid, but he had no idea. But then he found out that one of the people who got the contract was somebody who has given money to political campaigns, specifically the 6th floor, and even the 6th Bristol District campaign, and that would be Carol Fiola's campaign. And these people are very politically connected, and some of them do have jobs within the city of Fall River. So we have to look and we have to say, how is that fair? How is that creating more jobs in Fall River? I mean, we even look at this when we get into the snow removal contracts, because when you look at who has them, a lot of times we look at them and then we see that the people who have jobs in Fall River also have the snow removal contracts. And I'm not saying they shouldn't, but shouldn't we be offering those out fairly to everyone and not just saying, well, because you have the job, you get the contracts? And we got to be looking at that very fairly.
Yeah, I think actually probably that people who don't give to political campaigns and who are not employed by the city should have an equal opportunity at everything. Yes, we did have someone call us and say, look very closely at the snow removal, that a very high percentage of the snow removal is done by people who are city employees or give very heavily to the campaigns. I think that as my co-host here and my cohort, CJ, says, follow the money, and I think that it's not just in this area. We've seen what happened in Primacare when every doctor in Primacare, which I believe probably not one lives in the city of Fall River, gave the maximum allowable contribution to the mayor. And they got the medical overlay district. So the fact is that there seems to be an incestuous relationship here between campaign contributors and city employees and contracts. So again, we have the people who are making the most money making more money, and the people who are making the least money not having an opportunity.
And you would think that maybe the reason why they can't make the political campaign contributions is because they're not making any money to make them. I mean, it just makes perfect sense to me. If I was making more money, maybe I could make a campaign contribution to you.
Yeah, and I kind of have a different spin on that. I believe that, you shouldn't have to make a political contribution to work in Fall River. I don't believe that we should have a government where people buy their way in with everything. And we see it on every level. We see it on the federal level. We see how the lobbyists control Washington. We see what's happening now. They've literally stopped government. And they don't care. They don't care that we can't bury our soldiers because there's no money. They had to pass special legislation to bury our soldiers coming back from Afghanistan. It's outrageous. But sometimes on the federal level, we can't do a heck of a lot except be incensed and maybe change our representation. But on a local level, we can do something. We can demand that every Fall River vendor has an equal opportunity. And as a matter of fact, I would like to see some kind of resolution to say that if you're a vendor, that you're basically prohibited from giving to the mayor.
It would be nice, but then you're going to get people screaming, well, that's my First Amendment rights, and I shouldn't be restricted from, expressing my support for the mayor or the city councilor or the school committee, and I'm not out there to support, campaign contributions, but again, the counterpoint that we like to do every so often.
I agree to a point, but as I said, the fact is, express your support by endorsing him.
Yeah.
Telling everybody what a wonderful guy he is.
Mm-hmm.
But it leaves you some reason to be a little skeptical when every single person who gets a contract in the city of Fall River, you look and you find that their daughters and their wives, and they gave the maximum contribution. So, I mean, there is the appearance of impropriety, and I don't believe that. I believe that far outweighs their First Amendment, what they say is their First Amendment right to give money, because they're not really giving money, they're getting money.
I agree with you. I definitely agree with you. And it's, when you looked at those primary care contributions, as I did very closely, I saw janitors and secretaries giving $500, and I'm going, how can a janitor give $500? How can a secretary? They're not making that much money. They're not making the money that a doctor is making. So, I can't say that primary care reimbursed these people, but it looked a little fishy, And again, it's not the impropriety, it's the appearance of such. And you always have to say, what can you do? But again, you have to follow the money. And we look at these campaign finance reports, and you have to say that. And it's coming to the point now where it's going to get very interesting for us very soon, because the budget's coming around, and I can't wait. Because when that budget comes around, we're going to be flashing those numbers on the screen to you people out there, and we're going to show you how these numbers are fudged. Because believe me, none of them are what they seem. And you and I have worked these numbers before, over and over.
Yeah, the old adage that figures don't lie, but liars can figure. Fall River could be the poster child for that adage. And we are, as I said before, we're going to have to do a mini series on the budget, because it's pretty complex and it's hard to follow, and it is complex and hard to follow intentionally, because we really don't need a budget that's that complex.
Exactly. Well, thank you for joining us this week. We look forward to seeing you again next week. I'm CJ Ferry.
And I'm Chip Kamara.
And this has been Spindle City Straight Talk. Thank you for joining us. Have a great week.